14-day podcasting challenge course. We're excited to have you here, and we hope that this helps you to get your podcast up and running. I'm Annie Verga, and I'm joined by Nathan Gwilliam, our founder and CEO of PodUp. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about choosing the topic of your podcast. So when you're deciding on the theme of your podcast, there's a few different things you can consider. First thing I would say is, what things are interesting to you? And what is your expertise? Sometimes it's easy to go, oh, I think there would be an awesome podcast, if it was about this specific topic. However, you want to make sure it's something that interests you. The next thing I would consider when thinking of a topic for your podcast is going to be your target audience. Who specifically do you want listening to that podcast? That will help to tailor down your interests and ideas for different topics for the podcast and for different guests that you can have on as well. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about passions. So you want to think about, what is your passion? What are you passionate about? What's something that's going to excite you that you feel confident in talking about? And lastly, you want to find topics that will also meet your financial goals.
Sometimes it's good to choose a topic for your show that have products and services associated with them. When you build a following around it and you become this expert and people are trusting what you have to say, that there's actually products and services that you can recommend related to that product. So there's something to sell to your ideal customers.
All right. So we want to talk about choosing your passion. So when we're passionate about a subject, your ideas and creativity are going to flow much more easily. Your excitement and energy will be upbeat. Oftentimes, there's times when I see people who are on their podcast and you feel like you can tell they just don't really care about what they're talking about. It feels more just like a task that they're doing, and that they're just started a podcast because they felt like they needed to. You want to start something that you are passionate about and something that you can talk about. And you're much more likely to invest time to be successful if it's something you're passionate about. So Nathan, tell me something that you are passionate about and that you feel like you could just talk about forever with anyone.
I love to garden. I love to grow things. Yesterday, I went over to a friend's house and I had to drop off some keys, and they know my passion for gardening and orchards and stuff. And so they took me out, they had me look at all of their fruit trees, and they had me tell them which fruit trees were dead or which ones, how to winterize a certain fruit tree that keeps dying on them. And without doing any research, I was able to give them a whole bunch of information and help provide a lot of value because it's something I'm so passionate about. I already research, I already study, I already know. If you pick a topic that you are passionate about, you're probably going to be able to provide a lot more value, and it's going to show a lot more than if it's just a topic that you have to research for every episode. You're not going to be able to provide the depth to make you a thought leader on the topic.
I have a follow-up to that then. I was thinking the other day, I love soccer. I'm a big soccer fan. I love U.S. women's national team. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I would love to have a podcast that talks about all the soccer that's going on around the world. But then I thought about it and I was like, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan. And I feel like people would be critical, or I wouldn't really know what I'm talking about, but I know I'm passionate about it. Do you have any advice for people who might be in that same situation where they feel passionate about something, but they're nervous because they feel like they're not the expert on the specific topic?
Yeah, that is a really common issue. Most podcasters, when they start, they kind of feel like they're a fraud. They kind of feel like they're really not this expert, and they're putting themselves out there as the expert on this topic. But everybody feels that way when they start. And if you get in and you interview experts on your show, and you're having these conversations with thought leaders in the space, and you're researching and you're preparing for these episodes, within a year, you probably will be one of the industry leading experts in the space. So having a show is one of the best ways to become an expert thought leader on your topic. I would not shy away from it if you're not an expert. By doing a show, it's almost like getting a master's, an educational degree in that topic over the first year that you do it. You will become an expert. I don't think you need to be one of the industry leading experts to do a show, because the show will get you there in not a lot of time. And I would make sure that you invite the experts on. So going back to your soccer show, I think fans can do some of the best shows because, who are the experts? Maybe the professional soccer players, but they really don't have time to do a show. Sometimes the fan has a lot more time to go read the message boards or watch the shows or do some of those things that the expert professional player is just not going to do. Plus, you're one of the people that are going to watch your show are fans of soccer. The people that are going to follow you, you're already one of them. It'd obviously be better if you were Messi or somebody doing the show, but I think you can do a great show without being a professional soccer player.
I love that. I think it's important to follow your passions, follow the things that you're excited about, and see what'll come from it. And I love that Nathan said, have the people who are experts on your podcast. That's the best way to be able to put more information out there, is to have experts who also are probably looking to find ways that they can influence others and share their knowledge. So have those different types of people on your podcast. That leads me into this quote from T. Morris and Chuck Tomasi. They're professional podcasting pioneers. And it says, "Passion is a driving force with a majority of podcasters that keeps their podcast spur of the moment. With enough drive, inspiration, and confidence in their message, they keep their prep time to a minimum because podcasting isn't a chore, but a form of recreation." I absolutely love that because no one wants to do something that's a chore. I mean, I guess I can't say no one. There may be people who like doing chores, but I would say that that's probably a small amount of people. But find something that you enjoy doing. Find something that you're passionate about that you want to sit down. You sit down in front of the microphone and you just are super excited. I can't say that that might happen every time, but something that you're at least excited and motivated to continue and to work towards growing.
Yeah, it gets old really fast if it's a chore. You want to pick something that you're willing to invest that much of your life in learning, something that you really do want to be a thought leader on. Sometimes there's one-hit wonder bands that have a song and the one song becomes a hit, and then they're stuck for the next 40 years of their life playing that one song over and over and over again. So you just want to be careful that you pick a topic that you're going to be fine with if your show becomes wildly successful, that you're okay investing that much of your life in that topic if it works.
You might be asking yourself right now, I still don't really know what I'm passionate about, or I do, but I'm not too sure about it. So I've got a few questions you can ask yourself. The first one would be, what are you interested in and what topics do you enjoy discussing? So I tell people all the time, I say, if you're going out to a party or you're going out with friends, what do you find yourself discussing with your friends or the people around you? What do you find to be interesting that somebody asks you about and you just don't stop talking because you have so many things to say about it? Think about those interactions and start to keep track of that as you're out and about. Talk with friends, see what they may say, even ask them, say, hey, what do you feel like my interests are? I had this happen to me the other day. I was telling my husband, I said, I know what I like, but I often forget it, or I'm like talking with people and I don't know what I enjoy. So we sat there and we were in the car and we sat there and he was like writing down all the things that I enjoy and asking me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this list is way longer than I thought. There's so many things that I actually do enjoy and have fun doing. And these are all things that you could list out yourselves and start to see what topics you're interested in. And maybe that could become a podcast topic.
One other concept too is a lot of times people ask if they can do multiple topics on the same show. And you can, as long as one audience shares those same interests. If you have random topics and some people are just interested in one of your topics and other people are interested in another topic, then you're going to find people that they tune out, they disconnect from certain parts of your show. You want to make sure you pick topics that are all of interest to your ideal customer. So let's say that you're a soccer mom. You may have some topics. You may be able to talk about parenting. You may be able to talk about marriage. You may be able to talk about, women's issues. You may be able to talk about soccer, right? Those are all related topics to your target audience that your ideal customer would be interested in all of those things you're talking about.
That brings us perfectly into finding your niche and your target audience. This quote from Rob Cook, he's the host of the Contenders Wanted podcast. He says, if you don't know exactly who you're trying to reach with your podcast, you'll never know where to go to find those listeners, and no growth strategy will be effective. This is a big problem that I see very, very frequently. And it's the exact thing that Nathan was just talking about, where you want to be careful to not be so broad in so many different topics. You might have a lot of interests, but that doesn't mean that your audience is all going to have that same interest. I've worked with a lot of people who they'll come to me and they say, yeah, I want a podcast. And I'll say, okay, let's do this. What do you want it to be about? And they start naming off 5, 6 different, all totally different things, music and then movies. And then, yeah, it all kind of falls into entertainment, but it's still too broad because your audience may only be interested in music. They might not be interested in all the different topics you're trying to put out there. So there's a term that we talk about called niche down, and you want to make sure that you don't just go with a topic that is super wide but shallow, because that won't attract your ideal customers. You might think, well, everyone's interested in sports, so I'm going to do, or not everyone, but maybe a lot of people are interested in sports, so I'm going to do a podcast about sports. But that might not help to bring in listeners who are very, very devoted. You might want to go into the Phoenix Suns and talk mainly about the Phoenix Suns, because then you're going to find that audience that is very heavily interested in and excited about that specifically, rather than just something broad like sports.
And I would be much more interested to follow a Phoenix Suns podcast because that's what I care about. And if I listen to a podcast about all sports, I'm probably not going to be interested in 95% of what they talk about. I'm not interested in cricket. I'm not interested in tennis. I'm not interested in golf. I'm not, I am interested in the Phoenix Suns. So you allow, but by drilling down deep within your niche, you actually are providing something more interesting that's going to pull your ideal customers in.
That brings us into our exact case study from Nathan and his show, Monetization Nation. So Nathan, you want to tell us a little bit about how you focused on digital monetization as your niche?
Yeah, so I've kind of made this mistake of going too broad a couple of times. Even before Monetization Nation, I did a website on families. And I found, even though we got a bunch of traffic, it was really hard to find advertisers because it was so broad. Whereas if you niche down and you said we do ADHD parenting, or we do families of kids with Down syndrome, right? It would have attracted people into those certain niche segments a lot better, and would have been able to find advertisers for those niche sections, where when you try to be all things to all people, you're just not deep enough to attract your ideal customer. And I made that same mistake here with Monetization Nation. So the focus of this was digital monetization, digital strategies to help you make money. The problem was it was just too broad. We had a good amount of traffic. We had 300,000 views and downloads in our first year, not bad, but it was just so broad. Every business needs digital strategies to make more money. And when you try to cover a topic that applies to every single business on the planet, you just can't niche down enough. And a lot of what you cover is just not relevant to so many of the people that are out there. So I pulled back and we niched down into the podcasting space, and we relaunched as Podcasting Secrets.
We've got one other case study. This is from Jake Robinson and the Morning Huddle. So this isn't necessarily about niching down, but it's about following your passion. So Jake Robinson, he loved fantasy football and he played for over 14 years. And he wanted to start a show because he didn't see that it existed. So this actually started, the Morning Huddle started as a newsletter, and it summarized the most important insights from the previous day. It had a lot of memes in it, highlights, stats, all sorts of things. And that daily newsletter started on August 1st of 2022, and it went from 10 subscribers to 10,000 by August 31st of the same year. So he used a lot of these things we've talked about, where he realized, one, there was an audience that was excited to subscribe for it. And then two, it was his passion. So he had a passion for fantasy football that helped him to figure out, what the other fans are going to like. And that newsletter has since turned into a very successful podcast, as well as other things that they've done with their website. And he ultimately went ahead and followed his passion and found what his audience was looking for.
And a great example, too, of niching down, right? He didn't do all things sports. He niched down to football and then niched even further down to providing fantasy sports information within football.
All right, that brings us to the end of day one. So we're going to talk a little bit about those action items. The first things you're going to want to do is to self-reflect. Like we talked about, list out the hobbies and interests of yours and reflect on certain topics you love discussing. Then you want to research and explore. So investigate what already is out there. What existing podcasts are out there. Listen to a bunch of them. See where you could maybe differentiate yourself. And then look at your audience. So define what your target audience is. You can conduct surveys, interviews, look at feedback from other podcasts. There's a lot of different places you can go. You can go on Reddit. You can go just search the web in general, and you can find a lot of different analysis from different audiences, what they like about certain podcasts, what they don't.
I want to go a little bit deeper in this audience analysis portion. I think this is a really important exercise for podcasters who already own an existing business. So if you have a business, I highly recommend that you identify your ideal customer. What is it that they want from you? Understand that. And then figure out what you could do on your show to give them the most value possible. For example, one of the clients we've worked with is a company that provides services to medical coders. Because he sells products and services to medical coders, he probably wants to do a show focused on giving value to medical coders, where he shares with them the tips and the secrets and the strategies of how to code faster or how to bill easier and get paid faster. He's providing the value to them so that they want to follow, and then he can sell his products and services to that audience. So focus on giving value to your ideal customer as the main focus of your show.
Then maybe experiment. So draft some sample episodes, try it out yourself, get up on the PodUp recorder, start recording, see how you feel about the topic, and then get feedback from your friends and family. And lastly, you're going to want to align your passion with your expertise. So find where your passion meets your expertise and start ensuring that this is a topic that you're going to be interested about for a long period of time. And list those ideas out. Then you're going to want to niche it down, and hopefully you can find what you're passionate about and what topic you want to work with. Thanks for joining day 1. We're excited to have you for day 2, where we're going to talk about choosing the right name for your podcast and the right equipment.